Alright, so I'm stopping along the way. I don't know, I'm a couple hours away from home now, I guess. And I'm on my way into the interior of British Columbia for a few days. And along the way, I'm going to stop and visit some people I know. And when I get to my final destination, I'm hooking up some people who have basically been there, done that, and seen that when it comes to the mountains of British Columbia, big game hunting, being very remote and for very long times. These guys have got so many stories, it's absolutely freaking ridiculous. Now, I do know that one of the friends of mine I'm meeting up with, he found Sasquatch tracks before. And I don't know if they're going to be big on possibly setting up the camera around the fire and having beers and letting it rip or not. The other guy that's coming, I don't know, maybe not. He's president of a conservation club who I'm having a meeting with, was the main motive of the trip. We'll see. I'll feel them out. I'll feel it out. And I'll see if I can get them to crack open a fire outside, and we'll sit around and we'll just bullshit about what we know, what we've done and where we've been, and some crazy stories. And I think that'd be quite interesting. I haven't done that for a little while. Actually, I've only done that twice, right? So far, but it's pretty interesting to those who have listened to the past. But anyways, enjoy that view behind me, and I'm going to get a couple shares out here along the route. Hey Steve, been a long time viewer to your channel. I subscribed about 6 months ago. I really love the Howtohunt community. Finally felt compelled to share one of my encounters. I've had the best opportunity a girl could have growing up. Even as a small child, I was out enjoying the wilds of Alberta with my family and learning the ways of the land and respect for all it provides us. I've instilled this love and respect in all 4 of my now grown up kids as well, 2 of which are avid hunters. I'm in my early 60s now, and you still can't keep me out of those mountains. Even though my kids have given me a lot of grief about my solo adventures. Maybe that's why I've seen what I've seen, because I'm out on my own. Anyways, as you well know, Steve, there's nothing better than sitting by a secluded stream on a hot summer's day, fishing pole in hand. And that's exactly what I was doing on July 13th, 2013, on the Nordegg River, about 20 kilometers or so west of the Sunchild Road. Hiked in a couple kilometers off the pipeline to a nice secluded spot that I've frequented before. It was about 2 in the afternoon by the time I got to my destination. I popped up the tent in a shady little clearing, grabbed my gear, and headed down to the river for an afternoon of fishing. This river is seldom high or fast except in spring runoff, and has a nice deep little backwash in my favorite spot. I was probably fishing for about 45 minutes and had already caught a little goldeye, which I released, and 2 nice sized Rocky Mountain whitefish, which I intended for my supper. I was just getting ready to call an early day because of the heat when I heard an owl call out in a large spruce tree just up the bank behind me. I turned to look at the owl, thinking it's kind of odd to hear one at this time of day, when I hear this hell of a racket coming from the top of the riverbank about maybe 50 feet just downstream from where I am. Trees are swaying and snapping just like when a huge bull moose is in full tilt the run. When out of the bushes comes about a 3 to 4 year old cinnamon-colored grizzly, bawling like someone lit him on fire. He half slid, half rolled down that bank, regained his footing when he hit the water, and kept going as fast as he could across that river and up the bank on the other side, bawling all the way, and disappeared into the trees. Now I'm expecting another one, grizzly bear that is, to come bursting out hot on the tail of the first one, but what came out of the tree line was not a bear of any kind. I was front row witnessing a very large and very pissed off, hairy man, clutching about a 3 to 4 inch around, maybe 3.5 foot long, broken off poplar tree in his left hand. He stopped just short of the edge of the bank, raised his right hand above his eyebrows, probably to shade out the bright sun, and stared in the direction the bear had gone. His chest and shoulders were heaving up and down like he was almost out of breath. His face, and especially his eyes, looked like they were seething with anger. I could clearly see his face, as the sun was shining on it at the time, and yes, his eyes were still visible even though his right hand was partially shading them. It was light brown in color, mostly hairless except for the reddish brown hair around his mouth and chin, and neck and head. His arms were massive and muscular, as was his chest and legs. No hair on his hands and light hair on his arms. A little longer on his legs. He was probably about between 7 to 8 feet tall and at least 400 pounds of solid muscle. My son-in-law is 6'11" tall and 320 pounds, and this guy had at least another foot and 100 pounds on him. I think he stood there for maybe a full minute staring the direction that grizzly had gone before he turned, dropped his right arm back down to his side, and walked back into the trees, still clutching the piece of tree in his left one. He didn't even glance in my direction, just slowly turned and walked back the way he came from. I know my fight or flight mechanism should have kicked in by then, but I just sat there frozen, taking a few deep breaths, probably because I was holding my breath through the whole ordeal. I don't know how long I sat there. I couldn't have been too long, probably just a few minutes. Then the owl flew down from the tree over my head and gone. I guess I felt that was my cue to get the hell out of there. Grabbed my gear, broke my camp, and hiked my ass out of there as fast as my short little legs could carry me, leaving my 2 fish behind as a peace offering. I can remember the incident like it was yesterday. The sound of the bear bawling, the hairy man standing there, stick in hand. Guess it's something that just sticks with a person. I've fished that river many times since, just not that particular spot. I know what I witnessed that day, and no one can convince me otherwise. That was a very large, hairy man, not an ape of any kind. Seen them before, just not that close, and they were not threatening in any way. Whatever the bear did to piss off the hairy man that day, I think he was pretty damn lucky to be able to run away and lick his wounds as he did. Thanks, Steve, for listening. Take care out there. Jem. Holy shit. That is a one hell of an experience. Thank you so much for saying that and sharing it. It's actually, you know what, by this point of the game, if anybody actually listens to the people, the first-hand knowledge-filled people, the eyewitnesses, it doesn't take half a brain to figure out that these things aren't monkeys or apes. They just aren't. It's funny on that note too, it's funny, amazing how many people who are into the so-called researcher groups who they will not listen to or entertain the thought of even having the conversation with anybody who goes against what they believe, which is these things are a frickin' animal. I wonder why that is. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing to accept the fact that something is so out of this world to us, accept it as real, but that same mind will not entertain something else to go along with it, other facts that go with it. People's minds are real spooky things, aren't they? They're very confusing. Humans are very confusing animals to watch and deal with. As far as the bears go, it's amazing that he had rage. I mean, I wonder if they just naturally have a natural raging look to their face, as the men, the males. Because you try to picture why something so kick-ass, intimidating, and skilled would waste its energy to show that kind of emotion towards a silly 3-year-old bear, 4-year-old bear, no matter what the bear species it was, right? I mean, why would you be raged at a bear unless you were just one of those people who had a short fuse, right? And as far as killing bears and eating them, 100%. The Sabe people enjoy bear flesh, without a doubt. And why do I call it Sabe? Well, that is what the original name was from the original people of this continent, the original communities, the First Nations people. I don't know why. I think we gotta backpedal and start listening to the people that were here and had the knowledge first and listen to them. It's because they obviously got kicked off to the curb and ignored and laughed at all this time, which was so stupid. And I'll admit it's flat out. I mean, I don't try to control anybody. You say what you want, do what you want, think what you want. But if I could encourage some kind of a movement, it would possibly to be, number one, to lose that silly, cringeworthy name, Bigfoot. It's like so cringe. I even have a tough time reading it when I have to say that word in emails, you know? It's like, it just helps discredit this topic. It's the brand name for this being a myth or something to be laughed at. You know, when you hear people online going, well, we seen 2 Bigfoots, and then I saw another Bigfoot another time too, and then my uncle, he's seen the Bigfoots too, and I think he's seen 3 Bigfoots. It just makes you want to run and hide and plug your ears or cotton and look away like a bad car accident. But from what I gather from the First Nations people and the many people who have communicated with these beings, Sabe seems to be the name of these beings that stands out the most, and it sounds more respectful to me too. And I think it might be possibly a step in the right direction to gain more credibility for this topic, would be to lose the word Bigfoot and call these beings what their name is. I am definitely been swinging towards the fact that they are the Sabe people of the forest. And there's definitely more than just them out there, as we all know. But it's definitely not a bad start in the right direction, right? Start a bit of a movement to quit using that cringe-worthy words, Bigfoot. Getting on the bear thing. You know where I made that video, where I made that stand? Probably 10 years ago. That long straightaway. If you went down that long straightaway during the spring, it would basically be a guarantee you would see anywhere from 3 to 6 bears, either going across that road or feeding on the side. And as the years went by, I have noticed a drastic decline in the black bear numbers, just petering right out. And it's 100% not humans, although there is some human beings that have hunted. There is human beings that hunt bears there and other places. A friend of mine used to be the outfitter and guided bear hunts, and I guided for him. And there's just definitely not enough black bears harvested to even put a dent in the current population. But I've been watching them steadily decrease to the point I haven't seen one black bear on that long straight stretch in a handful of years now. And different various meadows, back corners of farmers' fields where you'll typically see a whole bunch of the damn things, or see them daily. You'll see the odd one, but it's not a guarantee to see 6 or 8 bears on the way into town, which is a 10-minute drive. You know, our community, the bears have just been depleting over the handful of years. And I'm just starting to get a little thought that something else might possibly be harvesting them. And if my gut's been screaming at me that thought for a few years, it's probably
probably true. We did have a major serious wolf explosion, and wolves do dig bears out of their holes and eat them in the wintertime, and they eat them whenever they can. There's just a pork chop covered in black fur, right? Tastes good.
they eat them. But the wolf populations has been back under control now for a few years, and I just don't see the black bear numbers like we normally have in the past. But getting back to the Sasquatch encounters grizzly bears, there was an account up in Alaska somewhere that I read about a while back where they could hear the racket. It might even have been in BC in one of the inlets. Whatever, it's a coastal grizzly bear, either way, on the side of the ocean. And they heard all hell going down in the middle of the night over the bank down by the beach, and went down later on. There was a big brown bear, grizzly bear, coastal grizzly, shredded, pulled apart and dead, and big human-like footprints around. So who knows? Maybe the Sabe people don't really like bears that much. I don't know. Who knows? But it seems to be a common read of expression where people see the large males of these beings, and so far I think it's basically about 100%, maybe 99.9% of the people who witness these things say the thing had a look on its face like it just hated them and wanted to kill them, you know. So, you know, you've heard that saying, resting bitch face, where some people just have a natural bitch look to them or a natural miserable prick look to them, meanwhile they're not. Maybe that's the case, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But anyway, thanks for sending that one in. Absolutely appreciate it, appreciate the time. And if you want, mail us back again and share the rest of the experiences and see if you got any more knowledge you want to share with us, and would be muchly appreciated by myself and many other people. This province is so rugged, it's ridiculous. It's funny when you fly over BC from, say, Victoria on the west coast, fly over to Calgary or Edmonton, it's like the second you get up in the air, you're flying across nasty mountains, and you're flying across nasty mountains all the way till you get to the Alberta border. It's just full-on rugged shit like this everywhere you go in this entire province. I'm guessing along the whole west coast of North America, I'm guessing. Pretty nasty, rugged stuff. This drain behind me, that goes up. If you follow that drain behind me, that'll eventually take you directly to an area where a First Nations man went missing. I can't remember if he was from Lytton, Spence's Bridge, Boston Bar, Merritt, whatever. He's from around there, right around there somewhere. And I spoke with a few people who've had first-hand encounters in that country right behind me, basically right where I'm standing as well. Anyway, only on day one of my road trip, and I'm going to stop and let you see a bunch of British Columbia in these mountains and where these people, these beings live as I go. Dear Steve, sorry to hear about your horse Macaroni. I had a pony that lived to be 37, and 2 horses lived to be late 20s, so I know how attached you can become. Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. My first encounter was October 1980. I was visiting my girlfriend, who was on gymnastics scholarship at Western Carolina State University in North Carolina. This is my second visit, and I learned on my first visit that my girlfriend's injured teammates did not go to Saturday morning practice, and my girlfriend would try to turn me and my car into a taxi service. I barely made it back to my college after my first visit because I had little gas and no money. I decided when she left for practice Saturday morning, I'd go walk one of the mountains that surround the school, which I did. I've been walking a little over an hour in some very clean woods compared to my woods that was family land. I heard what I thought was the first part of a bobwhite quail very close. I looked to where the whistle came from, and less than 50 feet away and 30 feet in a tree was what I thought was a giant gibbon ape. A family in my hometown had a pet gibbon that I'd been around on many occasions, and this animal looked like a very, very large gibbon to me. Filled out quite a bit more, but with very long arms, like the gibbon I knew. It was a male, was trying to keep the center of the tree between us, and he looked very surprised to see me. His mouth was pushed forward into an "oh shit, he sees me" look. He moved to his left when I moved to my left, and was looking for a tail, but just as I expected, he had a fanny and no tail. He's just too big to be a monkey, trying again to keep the tree center between us. He was solid black with a charcoal gray frame around his face. He looked very healthy and very young in the face. His size was hard to tell, but I knew he was at least as big as I was, 5'10", 220. His face was charcoal colored and his eyes were brown. His head was round, not pointed, so it appeared to me. I had no idea what I was looking at. Thought it had to be someone's pet that had gotten too big to handle and they released it to the wild. I don't even think there was anything like this in a tree on a mountain in North Carolina. I watched him for a few minutes or so and had to get back to meet my girlfriend after practice I was a senior in college and never said anything about it. No one would believe me. I did I did 20 years later tell my oldest friend who I hunted with. His son was there and they both rolled their eyes, so I just quit talking about it. I was not scared because I really thought it was a released pet. I just didn't know anything about the hairy man at the time. Fast forward to 10 years and I'm taking clients hunting on 2,100 acres on the Flint River in Middle Georgia area. Many times I had the experience of being followed when I was out there alone checking stands prior to the season start. Many times I had the peripheral sighting of something very large going from one tree to the next. This land had not been cut for timber on the river bottom and had some huge trees, gum, oak, hickory. On one occasion I was taking hunters to their stand, and when I parked to walk them in, my high beams were shining on what appeared to be a lightning strike, remains of a tree stump that was covered in moss. I walked them to their stand and came back to the truck. When I cranked up my lights and shined in the same location, I'd cut it off and the stump was gone. I could not believe it. Another time I'd just gotten my stand after putting clients in their stands, and I heard a conversation coming back toward where my truck was. The land is gated and the gate was locked, therefore I concluded I had poachers that had walked in. I walked all the way back to my truck and heard nothing and saw nothing. I just figured my hearing was not good enough to understand the conversation, but it was definitely a conversation. Two of my clients had heard my stories and were interested in seeing what I called a booger. So after midnight one Friday, we went to a ridge line with a bottom below and used a predator call of rabbit squealing. Immediately we heard something heavy come up from the bottom on 2 feet that walked around our location and went back down to the bottom. Crazy. We were standing back to back like a covey of quail of three. No one had said a word because they were scared and I was too. Then I heard what sounded like small children laughing coming out of the bottom. I did not say a word because I figured there's no way there was kids in that river swamp bottom at 1 a.m. in the morning. But one of my clients leaned in and whispered, "Did you hear those kids laughing?" All I could think was to say was thank you, because I was questioning my sanity that time. Now fast forward a few more years in the spring of 2001. I had just gotten into turkey hunting and my friend I hunted with had called 2 in for me the previous turkey season. He could not go hunting that morning, but he gave me a piece of decoy hen that would fall off the stick up pole and push bottom wooden then call and a push button wooden hen call. I put the dove bucket up in the root recess of a giant oak near my personal deer stand that dropped 1 billion acorns every fall. I literally could recess into this tree, it was so big. The sun was coming up around 7 a.m. and I had heard all kind of activity when the big eye was coming up. Squirrels, birds, and an armadillo was nosing leaves around about 20 yards from me. I heard a lot of fuss coming from behind me back toward the river. Thought it might be hogs, so I was kind of on edge, but had 28-inch BPS and a 3.5 Magnum number 4 turkey shot with no plug, so I had 5 shells in the gun and not much would take it that close. So I felt fairly secure. Whatever this was coming in my direction, and as I listened, I could tell it was on 2 feet and did not care who heard it coming. This kind of made me feel uneasy, thinking I was about to confront a poacher that came in off the river from a boat. But as I got closer, I could tell by the footfall it was very large and heavy. It came all the way to backside of my tree I was up in and stopped. That is when I smelled a very strong body odor. Not skunk or rotten meat, but very strong body odor. Sour, wet dog, strong body odor. About this time, whatever it was, cleared its nose and blew. I had a friend with a Belgian draft horse, and that is what it sounded like. My hair was standing up and I was literally feeling queasy, like nauseated queasy. All the sounds had stopped. No birds, no squirrels, and the armadillo was gone. Then I quit smelling the body odor, and whatever it was made no more sounds at all. I'd made a lot of noise getting into my tree, but it just shut off, and somehow it shut off the smell it had too. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat there and listened. I sat for what I thought was about 30 to 45 minutes. I finally stood up, grabbed my dove bucket, and started walking toward my truck, and did not look back until I cleared the tree I was under. I saw nothing. I had parked a quarter mile or more to avoid spooking the roosting turkey I had to walk past to get there. When I got to my truck, my watch was hanging on the gear shift, and it was 10:45. I remember thinking, there ain't no way it can be this late. I really thought it would be 9 or 9:30 at the latest, so that was the experience. Then later the next year in the spring, my brother and I were going flat fishing on the Florida Big Bend for speckled trout and redfish. It was 3:30 a.m. and we were 2 pounds. 130 is a big wolf, believe it or not. See, the predators, natural predators, are typically very, very lean. And I do know there has been some 200-pound cougars recorded. I'm not intimately knowledge filled of all the different ways submitted, the scales, weights. I'm not totally intimate with how many cats have been weighed in, around 200 pounds, but I know there's been some. But you know, you get a cougar that weighs 150 pounds. That's a big son of a bitch. So you try to picture something twice as big. That's African lion status going on, isn't it? It'd be pretty freaking unnerving having something like that laying in the shadows as you're hiking into your spot in the dark, wouldn't it? Wow. Crazy. If anybody else seen that same cat, make sure you email it in, all right? And tell us and share it. Share with us the details of where and when you saw that thing. I don't know about everybody else, but I know we got people from all over the world listening to this channel. I will guarantee you, if you are from the south and you are hearing about a 350-pound black cat, large cat running around where you hunt, where you and your kids go and play in the woods or camp, I'm sure you want to hear about it too, right? So, yeah, make sure you email us in with those and we'll get it shared. But anyway, here I go. Onward with my road trip.
I don't need my name thrown out there for that reason. Give me a couple more and I will not care. Wow. Sir, thank you so much for that share. Wow. That's a handful of experiences, and no doubt it sounds like you know exactly what you're talking about. And 350 for a cat. Whew. North America, that is a frickin' monster, man. I've seen some big cougars. You know, a big wolf is 130.
130 is a big wolf, believe it or not. See, the predators, natural predators, are typically very, very lean. And I do know there has been some 200-pound cougars recorded. I'm not intimately knowledge filled of all the different ways submitted, the scales, weights. I'm not totally intimate with how many cats have been weighed in, around 200 pounds, but I know there's been some. But you know, you get a cougar that weighs 150 pounds. That's a big son of a bitch. So you try to picture something twice as big. That's African lion status going on, isn't it? It'd be pretty freaking unnerving having something like that laying in the shadows as you're hiking into your spot in the dark, wouldn't it? Wow. Crazy. If anybody else seen that same cat, make sure you email it in, all right? And tell us and share with us the details of where and when you saw that thing. I don't know about everybody else, but I know we got people from all over the world listening to this channel. I will guarantee you, if you are from the south and you are hearing about a 350-pound black